Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. Welcome to another episode of Morning Meds. FamilyFamily.com's devotional spot for males to meditate on Yahweh's word for good success, as defined in Joshua 1 verse 8. We're grateful for your continued stubbornness in both paying attention and applying what we have been exploring for the past 66 days. Well, today will be 66 days of biblical meditation for males so that our families can be strong. We want to break down scriptural meditation into bite-sized pieces. Today we're looking at the topic, Lord of the Sabbath, the title Lord of the Sabbath, and this is looking at the general topic of God being omnipotent. He is supreme over time, from Matthew 12 verse 1 to 8. And yesterday we touched on the issue of faith, where we looked at the only other man to ever walk on water, recorded in scripture as Peter, this lowly fisherman, businessman from a town called Galilee, where a region called Galilee, Circle of the Heathen, as it, I believe the name translates. This is not a place you go on vacation, but yet still out of this place, Jesus elevates this lowly fisherman to be the only other person recorded in Scripture to walk on water. And that was from Matthew 14:22 to 23. Jesus responds to a dare from Peter that if he is who he is, then let me come out on water with you. Jesus knows who he is. He doesn't need to prove who he is, but he does take the opportunity to address any doubts. If we bring our doubts to Jesus, even if it is a challenge, Jesus tends to respond to those doubts. He did tell them to handle his body. He encourages people to bring doubts and fears to him. We know that we cannot address our doubts and fears internally because that's the source of the doubt and fear. Those doubts and fears are coming from either within us or there where we don't have the capacity to dissolve those doubts, as Daniel says. It said in Daniel. Anyway, Peter takes a risk. Risk works out until he starts to doubt God by being distracted from Jesus and focusing on the waves. Jesus doesn't leave him in trouble. He immediately rescues him. But he advises him, however, to understand the negative correlation between doubt and success in exercising faith. Excuse me. So today we are in Matthew 12, verses 1 to 8. And this is on the topic, a very topical, touchy, intense topic for many Orthodox Jews, Seventh-day Adventists, and other religions that are strict in observing the Shabbat. And Jesus says here, let's read Matthew 12, 1 to 8. Let's actually take it from Matthew 11, verses 28. Come to me, and I'm reading from the Good News Version. Come to me, all of you who are tired from carrying heavy loads, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke and put it on you, and learn from me, because I am gentle and humble in spirit, and you will find rest. For the yoke I will give you is easy, and the load I will put on you is light. Not long afterwards, Jesus was walking through some cornfields on the Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, so they began to pick ears of corn and ate the grain. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to Jesus, "Look, it is against our law for your disciples to do this on the Sabbath." Jesus answered, "Have you ever read what David did at that time when he and his men were hungry? He went into the house of God, and he and his men ate the bread offered to God, even though it was against the law for them to eat it. Only the priests were allowed to eat that bread. Or have you not read in the law of Moses that every Sabbath the priests in the temple actually break the law, the Sabbath law, yet they are not guilty? I tell you that there is something here greater than the temple. The scripture says, "It is kindness that I want, not animal sacrifices." If you really knew what that means, you would not condemn people who are guilty. Verse 8, which is our key verse for today. For the Son of Man is a Lord of the Sabbath. So when we look at this, you can reflect on this a little more with yourself or with your families. We understand that Matthew is a book of fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecy in Jesus. The Messiah being Jesus Christ. It's a book that shows that the messianic prophecies have been fulfilled in Jesus. It's a book about Jesus teaching, the discourses of Jesus, heavily about the kingdom of heaven and the church. So Matthew is writing this to, really heavily to point towards the Jewish nation, Jewish persons, to address any questions they would have about the Torah being fulfilled in this man, this carpenter Jesus being the Messiah. And when a Messiah comes, these are things that a Messiah will do. A Messiah will fulfill the law. A Messiah will show himself as a Messiah. And one of the things that he says in Matthew 11, verse 28, he is the source of rest. He says, "Come to me," Matthew 11, 28, "all of you who are tired from carrying heavy loads." And a part of what heavy loads could be is religious rituals. Could also mean sicknesses, poverty, etc., slavery. But here, the rest is the rest from the totality of burdens. I will give you rest. And he tells them to take his yoke. Excuse me. And put it on you. So we're exchanging the old traditions with the new covenant. Excuse me. And this is where we're going to find rest. So, this is the setup for the discussion on the Sabbath. And we can see in Matthew 12, 1-8, this discussion on the Sabbath comes after Matthew 11. He is showing himself, Jesus the carpenter, as the source of rest, not the law of Moses. The law of Moses was powered by Yahweh. Jesus is the Son of Yahweh. And these laws are not restrictive to him. He is actually sovereign over the law. He talks about David in verse 3. David is running away from Saul. He goes to the priests. The priests give him bread. And his men were hungry. He eats the bread that is reserved for the priests. David is not an anointed priest, quote unquote. But he is doing a messianic function. A priest is a prophet, a priest, a Messiah. The Messiah is a prophet, priest, and a king. David is carrying out the functions of a king, even though he's not on the throne at that time. I believe this is in 1 Samuel 21. So you can read that if you want. The point we're making is that other humans have broken the law. Other Jews that are revered have broken the law. David broke the law. he ate the showbread that was reserved for the priest, even though he is not officially recognized as a priest. Under the law of Moses, the priests are not supposed to, there is no work that's supposed to take place on the Sabbath, but priests break the law on the Sabbath. If you're butchering animals, you're lifting up stuff, you're carrying things across the temple, that is work. Yet still they're not guilty. So clearly, if you can, he's saying here, he's greater than the temple, he's greater than David. Jesus is saying that Jesus is greater than David, he's greater than the temple and the rituals. The sacrifices of the temple required people to break the law. David eating the showbread was a breaking of the law of the Sabbath. So, he says here in verse 8, the key verse, for the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. He's the creator of the Sabbath. He's the one that generates rest. So for today, we want to teach our families, yes, you can get stuck on rituals. But Jesus has come not to get to do away with rituals, but he is here as the one who the rituals point to. John 5:39, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have life, and they speak of me. And he will not come to me so that you may have life. Jesus is not interested in the rituals, he's interested in the life that the rituals are to generate. And the ritual of the Sabbath is to point us to rest. Let's remember that the seventh day did not end as all the other days ended in Genesis. There was no evening and the morning that ended the Sabbath, the seventh day. The intention being that Yahweh wants us to enter into, not to observe the Sabbath, but to enter into the Sabbath with him, enter into his rest. Book of Hebrews goes into this a little bit more, I believe Hebrews 4 or Hebrews 10. But anyway, excuse me, for today, our main thing to our families is that God is supreme over rituals. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. Matthew 12:8 says, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day.